What's up, guys? Well, welcome to today's live training. Today is all about how to set up your program for the new year. As everybody knows, January is the hot time to get everything started. Okay. So, what we want to do today, the goal of today's session is threefold. Okay. Number one, I want to make sure that you don't waste any time or energy following ineffective things or ineffective programs or ineffective mindsets. Okay. So, that's number one. That's our goal for today. Number two, our second one is I actually want to help you get results. Okay. So we want to make sure that you're also getting results. And the third thing is we want to make sure that you're able to stick to it long term. So those are our three goals for today's session. Okay. So the first two obvious things we know we need is a nutrition plan and a workout plan. Okay. We know that. Let's get that out of the way. We're not going to spend a lot of time talking about that because we understand the importance of it. Okay. Now, here are some not so obvious things that you may not know that you need. Okay. So you need a process or a system that is going to allow you to execute your nutrition plan at a high rate. We're going to go into detail on what that means. Okay. You need a process or a system that's going to allow you to execute your exercise plan at a high rate. Okay. If you don't have these systems in place to be able to execute at a high rate, most likely you're going to fail time and time and time and time again. If your only strategy is I'm going to follow this plan, or your only strategy is I'm going to be perfect on this plan, or I'm just going to go do it. If that's your only strategy, you're setting yourself up for failure. Okay. So you got to make sure you have a process for both of those. Okay. Number one, or I'm on like number 5 already. The other thing that you need is you need to know your starting stat points. Okay. Everybody always knows where they want to be, but they don't really ever take the time to do the starting stat points. I get it. It's painful. It sucks. Nobody wants to do it. I get it. But it's a very necessary part of your journey as a coach. As a coach, if I don't know where you are starting, I am literally just guessing on what you need to do. And how many of you guys would pay me all this money for me just to guess? You don't want to just have somebody that's just guessing at you. Okay. You didn't have to pay me money for me to guess. Okay. So don't do that to yourself. Don't not do your starting point measurements because you're just going to end up guessing on what exactly you need to do. Okay. Now, again, we all know in concept of what we need to do, but when you're starting to create something that you're not going to waste your time, that you're going to stick to it long term, and you're actually going to get results, you got to have more things in place than I just have a goal of I want to lose 20 pounds or whatever the case may be. Okay. Now, you also need to know, along with your starting point, you also need to know what is your end point? Where do you actually need to be? Okay. As we go through this, we're going to talk about what are the things that you really need. What are the stats that actually matter? Because too many people are using stats that do not matter, and it's a waste of time. Okay. So we're going to talk about that. Okay. You also need to have a consistent monitoring system so you know if you're on the right track and you're doing the right thing. Okay. You need accountability. Okay. We're going to talk about what accountability is. Okay. You need support. Okay. And we're going to talk about the different types of support that you need. And probably more than anything, you need to have the knowledge or have someone who has the knowledge on how and when to adjust your plan when it's not necessarily giving you the results that you need. Okay. These are, as I went down, it started to get not so obvious. Okay. So these are essentially all the things that we're going to cover today. We're going to go into more detail on all of it. Okay. But if you just listen to this part and you stop listening to the rest of this session, then that's essentially what we're going to do is we're going to go through each one of these more in depth and understand why it's something you need in your plan and some mistakes that people make. Okay. Now, before I do this, let me tell you that I have been in the gym industry for 22 years. Okay. Or the fitness industry for 22 years. Of the first 14 years of my fitness career, it was all spent in the gym. Okay. So every New Year's, I saw people coming in with the exact same thoughts, the exact same goals, the exact same approach, the exact same everything. And so you can just imagine after 14 New Years of me going through this, right? That's just when I'm in the gym. But after 14 times of doing this and having thousands and thousands of people follow this, you start to pick up on some patterns and you start to pick up on some things that you know just aren't going to work. Okay. So that's what we're going to talk about right now is the common mistakes that we know just aren't going to work. If you are making these mistakes, the chances of you actually being successful is about this much. Okay. It's about less than 1% if you are making these mistakes. You don't even need to be making all of these mistakes. One mistake can literally, it's like Jenga. One mistake can literally pull the little wooden block out and make everything tumble. Okay. So you got to make sure that you're not making any of these mistakes. Okay. So number one, the first mistake that I see everybody making is starting too aggressive. Okay. I tell a very classic story of a gentleman who came in and said, his name was Gary. Okay. I remember, I'm not going to say his last name. Okay. This was very early in my career. Gary says, Aaron, I'm going to come in. I want to lose 75 pounds. And he was a big guy, but he wanted to lose 75 pounds. I said, okay, great. So I went through a little questionnaire. I said, okay, how many days a week are you exercising right now? And he's like, oh, I'm not. I said, okay, well, how many days a week do you want to exercise? Oh, I'm going to come in 5 days a week and I'm going to do this and I'm going to lose 75 pounds in 3 months. And I was like, Gary, let's slow it down. It's a little bit too aggressive. I think you just need to slow it down and we just need to focus on making small little changes, over a period of time. No. I'm going to do this. I'm a former athlete. I used to work out. I'm a police officer. That's what he was, right? I'm a police officer. I can do this. I know what to do. I just need to do it. I'm going to do 5 days a week. Let's get after it. And Gary came in the first week and did 5 days. Okay. I never saw Gary again for the rest of my life. True story. Never saw him again. Okay. So he started off too aggressive. Okay. So that's mistake number one. Okay. And you know what too aggressive is. Okay. If you look at what you're doing, you're like, oh man, it's going to be really hard. Chances are that's probably a little too aggressive. Okay. How do you know if something's not aggressive? When you look at it, you're like, oh, I can do this. I can do this. Even if everything falls apart in my life, I can still do this. That's not too aggressive. Okay. Even if my kids get sick and even if job is demanding, I can still do this. Okay. That's not aggressive. And that's probably where you should start. Okay. Because all of that stuff will happen at some point in your journey. So you've got to make sure that you plan for the worst and you say, if everything were to go to hell, what is the minimum that I know I can do? And that's probably where you need to start. Okay. So starting too aggressive is common mistake number one. Common mistake number two, and I hear this all the time, and I laugh about it because it's hilarious. But I just need a kickstart. I just need a jumpstart. I know I need to do this long term. I know I stick to it long term, but I just need a kickstart. So I'm just going to get after it, and I'm going to go 100% with it, and that's my mindset. Okay. Again, that's not something that you want to do because again, you're starting off with that too aggressive approach. Okay. Number three. Starting with programs that you know are 100% completely unsustainable. Okay. You're so short-sighted that all you want to do is get results right now. You're so desperate. You're hurting so bad because you failed time and time again. You just want to show signs that something is working. And so you're willing to throw everything into it to make it work. Right. But you start with something that's completely unsustainable and you're not going to be able to do it forever. Okay. And you just keep falling into that same trick. And the more times that you try and the more times that you fail, the more radical you're probably going to get with the things that you're going to try. Okay. So think about it. How many times have you tried and quit and failed and failed and failed? And how much more radical has your approach been? Right. The people who figure it out say, oh, wait, I probably don't need to be as radical, as aggressive, and maybe I need to go. And those people are more likely to achieve the success they want. Now, I'm not saying that if you're super aggressive, you're not going to get there, but the chances of you actually making it all the way through the end of the year with something that's unsustainable is not very likely at all. Okay. One of the other mistakes that people make is not spending real time planning out their year. Okay. They just plan out, for the next 30 days. Or for the next 6-week challenge, or for the next 8-week challenge. Okay. If you're doing a 30-day challenge, if you're doing a 6-week challenge, if you're doing an 8-week challenge, whatever the challenge is, if you're doing that, Okay. You're only looking at that moment and that's it. You're not spending time for the rest of the year. What's your plan after that challenge? How many weeks are you going to give yourself off? When are you going to get right back onto it? What are you going to follow afterwards? Okay. So you don't spend enough time planning out the entire year. You have to have a shell. Even if you adjust it and modify it, that's fine. Even when I sit down and create a 1-year program for somebody, we may not do every single thing on that, but at least we have the direction. At least we have the path. At least we know the direction that we're going. Okay. If you don't plan it, you're literally just making it up every time it's time to figure out what is next to do. Okay. All right. The other thing is, and we kind of talked about this already, but not taking starting measurements in photos, right? Not tracking the correct stats, and only tracking your weight. Okay. Listen, let's have a conversation. Just me and you. Okay. I know there's a lot of other people watching, but just me and you. Let's have this conversation. I'm gonna close my eyes because I get so passionate about it. If your only goal is to lose weight, stop watching this because you're going to fail. If your only goal is losing weight, that tells me that you truly do not understand what is actually important. Okay. Here's the answer. The important thing is not weight loss. The important thing is fat loss. I have so many people that tell me, "Hey, Aaron, I just want to, lose weight." Okay. Let me chop off your leg. Oh no, I don't want to lose that kind of weight. Okay. Well, what kind of weight do you want to lose? I want to lose this tire around my stomach. Okay, you mean the fat? Yeah, I want to lose the fat. Okay, cool. Let's focus on fat loss. Okay, so your goal should not be weight because weight is not fat. Weight is fat, muscle, hair, bones, organs, skin. It's all of that combined together. And you don't want to lose your hair. Okay. You don't want to lose your muscle. You don't want to lose your bones. You don't want to lose your organs. You don't want to lose your skin. You want to lose fat. So if you keep saying, "Oh, I'm on a weight loss program," you're saying the wrong thing. What you say is going to determine what you focus on. You're not focused on weight loss. You're focused on fat loss. Now, if you're 300 pounds, okay, yes, weight is part of the deal too. But if you're 150, if you're 160, even if you're right about 200, okay, yes, weight's going to be a part of it. But ultimately, what you want to do is you want to lose fat. And that's what matters to you. Okay. Whew. Y'all got me heated. I'm over here sweating. All right. All right. So the next mistake that I see people making all the time is making decisions on how they change their plan based on how they feel. Okay. And they're not making their changes based on true stats. Okay. Anytime you can ask any of my clients, anytime a client calls me up and says, "Hey, Aaron, I think I'm gaining weight. Aaron, I think I'm gaining fat. Aaron, I think I'm losing muscle." Anytime they say anything, "Hey, I think I'm not on the right track." Okay. First thing I do is, "Hey, tell me what's going on. Tell me what's happening. Let me listen to you." Okay, cool. I hear all that. Okay, cool. Got it. Just provide a space for them to air out their grievances. Okay, cool. I got it. Totally understand. Now, let me ask you this question. Have you tested your body fat yet? No. Do you know how many pounds of fat mass that you have? No. What's your execution rate on your meal plan? I don't know. Okay. Well, let's focus on these things because we can't make any changes and we can't make any assessment if we don't really know the real stats. I get it. You're going to feel fat. You're going to feel gross. You're going to feel like you're not making progress. There's a big difference between feelings and what's actually happening. Okay. So a lot of people make decisions just based on how they're feeling, not by what's happening. They're like, "Oh, I'm feeling my clothes are getting tight. That's how I know I'm getting fat." And I can sit here and I can tell you a totally different story on why that is not an accurate assessment that you're getting fat if your clothes are fitting tighter. Okay. We'll save that story for another day. In fact, it's already on YouTube. You can go watch it on YouTube. If you want to see that video on when your clothes are fitting tighter, how that doesn't necessarily mean you're getting fat, just comment below YouTube video. Okay. And I will send you that video. I'll send you the link on that video. Okay. All right, cool. The other mistake that I see people making is they're quitting because they're not perfect on their plan. Okay. So first week, they're real good. The second week, they start to drop off a little bit. By the third week, they're 60%. And they're like, you know what? This plan just doesn't work. And they quit altogether. Oh, I'm done. Okay. Listen, if your program is set up that the only way you are going to get results is to be 100% perfect on that program, it's the wrong program. Okay. I will say it time and time and time and time again. If you're following a program that requires you to be 100% perfect in order to get results, it's the wrong program. Okay. You will not be perfect. Your circumstances will not be perfect. Your life will not be perfect. You will lose motivation. You will lose hope. You will gain weight. All kinds of crazy things are going to happen, and they're not going to be perfect. And you following and executing that is not going to be perfect either. But you can still get results. A good plan will allow imperfection, will allow all of that, and still able to get you results. Okay. So a lot of people quit because they feel, this is the next one, is they feel that the only way that they're ever going to get results is if they're perfect. And that is a 100% improper mindset. Improper mindset is not true at all. Okay. And then one of the other things that the mistakes that people make is not really having a knowledgeable, super important, a knowledgeable outside perspective on what is going on with them. Okay. This is why coaching is so important, guys. As long as we keep things in our mind and our head, we can start going all different routes. Okay. And our knowledge is only our knowledge. Okay. Having an outside perspective, number one, even if they're equal knowledge to you, that's extremely valuable to have that outside perspective. Okay. Having an outside perspective with somebody who has a ton more knowledge or what they specialize in, that's even far more valuable. Okay. But just having that outside perspective, even if they're equal knowledge as you, is extremely valuable because they're able to see things from a different vantage point. You're in the middle of it. You're going through it. Okay. They can see it from outside. They can tell you kind of their thoughts and their input. Okay. So a mistake that I see people make is not having that reliable, knowledgeable outside perspective that they go to every time. Okay. All right, cool. So those are the common mistakes. Now that we've covered the common mistakes, okay, we've covered the 10 things that you absolutely need in your plan. Okay. Let's cover them again. Let's do a real quick recap. We're going to go into depth on each one of these 10 things. Okay. So nutrition plan, workout plan, process and systems in order to execute your nutrition plan, process and systems in order to execute your exercise plan, know your starting stat points or your starting point and your stats for that, know your goal stats, have a consistent monitoring system, have an accountability system, have a support system, and then have the knowledge to adjust and tweak the program. Again, that is not guessing. Okay. So we're going to go into depth on each one and we'll try to be as fast as we can. Okay. So let's look at nutrition. Okay. Now, what I'm not going to do right now is I'm not going to sit here and say, this is the right nutrition plan that you should be following. Okay. I'm not going to do that. Okay. There are a ton of different nutrition plans out there that you can follow. Okay. But what I want to do is make sure that you have clarity on when you're choosing the right style of program. Okay. If you want to know what program I think you should follow, then let's, hit me up. Let's talk. Let's do a full assessment. Let's figure out where your starting point is. Let's figure out what kind of food allergies you have. Let's figure out your likes and your dislikes. Let's figure out what actually is going to work. Let's figure out how quickly you want to get there. Let's do this whole assessment. And then I can tell you exactly what I think you should be following. Okay. That's how in-depth it is. Okay. I have a 95-point assessment in order to determine what kind of plan you need to be following. Okay. So for me to sit here, not hear any feedback, not really know you, and for me to tell you what plan you should be following, that's outrageous. Okay. That's irresponsible of me as a coach. Okay. But here are some things that you can put down and some things that you can do that will give you clarity on what kind of nutrition plan you should be following. So number one, know what style of eating you're going to be following. Okay. If you can go all the way back to, I did a seminar previously, and it was the 4 different ways to create a meal plan. Okay. And I went through the 4 different categories. Category 1, you can create a calorie-based meal plan. That's when you're just trying to follow a certain number of calories. Okay. Number 2, you can follow a macro-based meal plan. And this is when you're eating a certain amount of grams, carbs, fats, and proteins every single day. Okay. Then the third type of eating is what I call the food type plan, right? This is when you're eating certain types of food, right? You're a vegan, you're a vegetarian. Maybe you're following the Mediterranean diet. Maybe you're following, which is really hot right now. And a lot of dietitians say this is what you should follow, right? Maybe you're following a keto style diet, right? That's also a food type diet, right? So maybe you're doing something along that nature. Okay. So that's a food type diet. Okay. Or there is what's called the total comprehensive type of plan that you can follow. And that's when you look at your habits. That's when you look at the foods you like, the foods that you don't like, the foods that your body responds to. It has some calories, macros, and types of foods all incorporated into that. And probably the most important thing is that it has a strategy that says, okay, we're going to focus on this first. Then we're going to maybe we focus on calories first. Then we focus on macros second. And then we focus on food types third or whatever, right? But there's a strategy behind why you're doing what you're doing. Now, obviously, the fourth way of creating a diet, that's the most comprehensive, that's the most customized, that's the most everything. But you got to make sure you have somebody who really knows how to put something like that together. Most people, they just know one way. They just know macros, or they just know calories, or they just know a food type, and that's it. They only know those things, okay? Which is not a bad place to start, but it's very limited when you only know one way of doing stuff. A good coach like ourselves here at iFM Coaching, we know a gazillion different ways to do it. So number one, you got to know, when it comes to your nutrition plan, you got to know what style of diet you're eating. Okay. Number two, the second question you got to ask yourself is this diet actually, or this way of eating, is this actually sustainable? Can I actually sustain this for the entire year? Can I actually grow into it? Okay. Is this something I can see myself following for the rest of my life? Okay. Or at least for the foreseeable future. Okay. If the answer is no, do not do it. Okay. And in fact, I wouldn't even encourage you. If you think that you need to go all in on a diet and you need to be 100%, I would tell you, and that's the only way you're going to get results, don't follow it. Okay. Don't follow it. The best thing to do is to ease on into a plan. So if you look at a plan, you're like, wow, this is super extreme. Okay. All right, cool. Let's just sit there. Look, this plan is super extreme. Okay. This is where I am right now. I'm here. This is my starting point when it comes to assessing it according to the way the diet says I should be following it. Okay. So this is my starting point. This is what the diet says I should be doing. What are some small little baby steps that I can take that will allow me to eventually get to this extreme point? Okay. And then you can ease on into it. Okay. Most people don't want to do that. Most people, they want to start following this right now, and then they want to ease on into it afterwards, right? Oh, I just want to follow it hard for 30 days, and then I'll start thinking about the habits. But by that time, they're so discouraged because they can't keep it up that they never get to the point of easing on into it. Okay. All right. So that's nutrition plan. When it comes to your workout plan, these are things that you got to know. Okay. I'm saying this stuff and you're probably thinking, oh, this is stupid. Oh, this is easy stuff. Listen, as a coach, this is what I do. Okay. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, oh, let's do something that's super revolutionary. You want me to tell you what's revolutionary? Revolutionary in the fitness world is actually following science. That's actually pretty revolutionary, because most people out there are teaching all kinds of crazy stuff and saying, oh, if you do these radical things, you're going to get great results. Okay. What is revolutionary is teaching the basics, following the basics, and getting results. That's actually way more uncommon than you think. Okay. So I promise you, when a client focuses on these things, this is what we do as coaches. When a client does these things, they will get results every single time. Okay. Whew, you are getting me worked up, man. All right, here we go. What type of exercise are you going to do? Okay. When are you going to do it? Where are you going to do it? Here's the thing, guys. Do not try to follow the exercise that's going to give you the most results. Okay. That is a wrong place to start. Instead, follow an exercise that you know you can consistently do. Follow the one that you can easily go in every single day. When I was in the gym world, one of the big questions that people have is, should I buy a gym membership that is closer to home, or should I buy a gym membership that is closer to work? And Only crazy people bought a gym closer to home because they would work out like at 4 o'clock in the morning. And if you work out at 4 o'clock in the morning, you are crazy in a good way. I like you, but I don't like you because that's crazy, right? But if you try to work out at night when you're closer at home, it'd be too busy, right? So really the answer that I always gave them is, which gym are you actually going to show up to? Forget about price, right? Because if you're paying 50 bucks a month, or let's say you're paying 20 bucks a month to a gym closer to home, but you never go, well, are you really getting anything out of it? No, it's a complete waste of money, right? But if you pay $75 to $100 to a gym that you show up to 5 days a week, are you really going to care how much you're paying? Hell no. You're going to look good. You're going to feel good. You're going to feel amazing because you actually showed up. Okay. So the answer is always do the thing that you're most likely going to do and you're going to be able to sustain. Now, as time goes on, you can get more intense. You can get crazier. You can work into those extreme things. Okay. But make sure you start off with things that you can actually do. Okay. All right. So let's talk about systems and processes in order for you to execute your nutrition plan. That was one of the things that you got to have that's in place, is a system and process in order for you to execute your nutrition plan. And there's a lot of them. Okay. In fact, our entire program is built on these systems and processes, but I'm just going to give you an example of what systems and processes are, right? So when are you going to cook your food? Okay. What portion size are you going to follow? How are you going to pack your food? What containers are you going to use? Okay. And what days are you going to do all of this? Okay. These are all parts of a system and process that will allow you to execute your meal plan better. Okay. I'll give you an example. So let's say that you have a meal plan. Okay. And you're going to follow this particular meal plan. Okay. Well, obviously, how are you going to follow it? Well, I'm just going to do it. Okay. That's what everybody says, right? Well, what happens when what does every nutritionist or every coach say? Hey, you got to meal prep. Okay. We're not telling you to meal prep because we just think that's what you're supposed to do. No, you know why we tell you to meal prep? Not because we want to make it hard. We tell you to meal prep. That way, now when it's time to eat, it's super convenient to eat the foods that are right there. Okay. Because if it's not convenient for you to eat a healthy meal, you're going to end up eating what is convenient. You're going to go to Whataburger. You're going to go to McDonald's. You're going to eat something out of the snack machine. You're going to do something. So the reason why we tell you to meal prep is to make healthy eating easier than the unhealthy eating. Okay. That is a system. That is a process that's going to allow you to execute your meal plan at a higher rate. Okay. That's a really simple example of what I mean by system or process. Okay. There's a lot of other things that you have to do to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success. Okay. Like one of the other things is, don't go out and buy a bunch of junk food. Okay. Like it starts there. So don't buy a bunch of junk food. If you go out and buy junk food, guess what you're going to do? You're going to eat it. Okay. So that's another system and process that you can follow. Okay. So, I mean, it goes into the grocery shopping, it goes into your mindsets. There's a lot of different things that go into your system and process, but write down all the things that you must do in order to execute your meal plan at a high rate. Okay. All right, let's talk about the same thing with exercise. What system and process do you need in order to execute your nutrition plan at a high rate? Okay, so number one, you need to make sure that you're going to stick to this exercise routine. Okay, we already talked about that. Now remember this. Remember the FIT principle, FITT. Okay, it's an acronym. And it goes from the most important to the least important. The first F stands for frequency. That is the most important thing that you can focus on. Okay. Once you are frequent, once you are going to the gym all the time, or once you are exercising all the time, once you're outside running or you're walking or whatever it is, once you're frequent, then you can focus on intensity. Okay. So if you just start off walking and you start off walking for an hour, because that's what you can do. Everybody can go outside right now and go walk for an hour. Okay. Rain, shine, snow, whatever it is, you can go outside and walk right now for an hour. Okay. Everybody can do that. Okay. Now, once you do that and you're frequent and you're doing it all the time, then the second step is to focus on intensity. So instead of walking, maybe you jog for 5 minutes and then you walk for 5 minutes. And then maybe you jog for 5 minutes and then you walk for 5 minutes, and you do that for an hour. Okay. That's focusing on intensity. Then the next T, okay, is the amount of time that you do it. Okay. So maybe you increase your time or decrease your time or whatever it is. If you were walking at 30 minutes, maybe you increase it to 45. Okay. So you start working on the time. Okay. And then the very last T, the least important of everything, is the type of exercise. Okay. So if you start going through this whole process and you realize, hey, running is not really getting me the results that I want, okay, let's change the type of exercise. Okay, what do I need to do? Maybe I need to go hit the weights, and then you go do that. And then you go back to the same thing, frequency, focus on that. Then you focus on intensity. Then you can focus on increasing or decreasing the time. And then you go back and reassess what is the next type of exercise that I need to do? Maybe it's still weights, but maybe it's focusing on doing more hamstring work or butt work or whatever it is, right? Okay. So these are all things that I'm talking about on systems and processes of what you've got to do. Okay. So what is it going to make easy for you to exercise? Again, just focus on the fit principle and you're going to be fine. Okay. Now let's talk about the next thing that you need in your program in order to make your new year plan actually work. Okay. And I cannot stress this enough, guys. Please, if you take anything away, take these next 2 points. Okay. This is super important. Okay. If all you did was remember these next 2 points that I'm going to talk about, okay, then you're going to be starting off with better than most people. Okay. So know your starting point stats. And I already talked about it. Do not emphasize your weight. Again, if you're, 200 plus pounds, if you're a female, okay, if you're 250 to 300 for a male or above, okay, then yeah, okay, we got to think about weight a little bit, but it's something we monitor, but it's not something we emphasize, okay? You will always emphasize fat. You will always emphasize fat, losing it and increasing muscle. Always. That's how it works all the time. Okay. So here are the stats, the must know stats. Okay. Now there's a lot of other ones. I mean, we take about 20 different stats whenever we're doing our coaching sessions, but we're on a different level. We're big nerds. But if you're just doing this on your own, here are the stats that you've got to track. Okay. You've got to know your body fat percentage. You got to know how many pounds of fat mass that you have when you're starting off. You got to know how many pounds of lean body mass, AKA muscle mass, that you have on your body to start off with. You got to know your basic strength levels if you're going into the gym. You have to know if you're let's say you're going to go walk or you're going to go run, you got to know your starting point of how far can you run right now and how fast can you do it. You need to know as many starting stats as you possibly can. But I can tell you this, if you just did these three, body fat, fat mass, and lean body mass, okay, you are starting off better than anybody. You got to know those start stats, okay? Now, second thing that you need in order to do it is you need to make sure you know your goal stats, okay? Where do you want your body fat percentage to end up, okay? If you're at 30% and you want to end up in 20, okay? You need to know that, okay? Is 20 even realistic? What does 20 actually look like? Is that something that's actually sustainable, okay? A lot of people tell me, hey, I just want to be at 14% body fat. Well, why? Why do you want to be at 14% body fat? Well, I don't know. I just read it in a magazine that if you're at 14% body fat, you can see your abs. Oh, okay. Wait, you want to see your abs? Yeah, I want to see my abs. Okay. Well, let's talk about what it takes to get there, right? So a lot of times people just throw out arbitrary numbers that mean nothing, right? And it's when we start to dig as we start to really figure it out. Okay. So you got to know where you want to be with your body fat, how many pounds of fat you actually want to lose, and where you want your lean body mass to end up. I get it. Some of these things are really hard for you to do on your own because you may not know. And if you don't know, then it's all the more reason why you should hire a coach. Okay. I am not on here trying to tell you to hire a coach, and I'm not trying to put you in a headlock to hire a coach. But guys, if you don't know the basic stuff, this basic things, and you can't do this on your own, you need to really start to consider hiring a coach, because everything that we do is based on your starting point of fat percentage, your fat mass, and your lean body mass, your end goal, and tracking everything in between. This is why our clients get success. Okay. All right. The next thing that you need in order to make your New Year's program actually work is you need to have a consistent monitoring system. Okay. So it can keep you on track. Most people, if they do their measurements at the beginning, they will do their measurements at the beginning, and then they will avoid doing measurements again because they don't feel like they did it right. They don't feel like they got any results. They don't feel like, they'll try to avoid it as much as they can. And like I said, at the very beginning, they just go based on feel I feel like I'm not doing this. Listen, have a consistent monitoring system that you show up no matter what. You're going to get those measurements no matter what. Okay. If you do that, you're going to be fine. Okay. So just know, how are you going to measure your body fat? If you measure your body fat, it's really simple to measure how many pounds of fat. It's just a formula you do, but you got to know your weight and your body fat. And if you do that, you can determine how many pounds of fat mass and things like that. So where will you measure your body fat? Okay. Um, who is going to do it? Like, how are you actually going to measure it? Are you going to do a in-home test? Are you going to go to a gym? Are you going to do calipers? Are you going to make a trainer do it? How are you going to measure it? Where are you going to measure it? And how often will you measure your body fat? Okay. My suggestion is if you're starting off, my suggestion is to do it once a month. That's it. Do it at the beginning of every month or do it at the end of every month, however you want to do it, but do it once a month. The first of the month is going to happen every single month. So just do it on the first of the month and there you go. You're good to go. Okay. So the next thing that you need in order to make your New Year's program actually work long-term is you need an accountability system. Okay. Now, an accountability system is somebody or something or a group or something that you are reporting to that is outside of yourself, and you're giving them the authority to give you feedback that you will actually follow. Okay. There's a lot packed into there. Okay. So number one, you got to have somebody that's outside of you. We talked about this before. Okay. Number two, you got to give that person the authority to give you feedback. How many times have we gone to somebody and they say stuff and we're like, oh, you're full of whatever, right? Oh, you're just BS. You don't know, right? Well, don't go to that person if you're not going to listen to them. Okay. You have to give that person the authority to give you feedback. And then you got to make sure that you follow it. Okay. Because what good is feedback if you're not going to follow it? It's a waste of time. Okay. So you got to have an accountability system, somebody that's outside of you that you're giving the authority to give you feedback, and you are going to follow what they say. Okay. Important. Okay. Now, you also need a support system. If you want your New Year's program to work, you do need a support system. Okay. And a support system, there's a lot of different support systems that we need. Okay. We need our cheerleaders. Okay. We need those people. Hey, you're doing great. Keep going. Okay. When you see people running the marathon, you see everybody lined up cheering them on. Okay. You need the cheerleaders. Okay. But you also need the motivators. Okay. The people that are in your ear. Hey, you got to do this. Go watch a YouTube video of Tony Robbins talking or something. You're like, hey, this is how you get out of the ground and you get up and you take the mountain and da 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 da. Like, you need the motivators. Okay. You also need the hard asses. You need people that are going to hold you in check. You need people that are not going to bullshit you. You need people that are going to sit there and say, hey, you're fat because you're making these choices. You're doing this stuff. You made this decision, right? Sometimes you need that. You need that hard ass. Now, you don't need that all the time, okay? Because then it just becomes demeaning, okay? But you need that role as well, okay? And I'll tell you what you don't need. It's super important. You don't need the negative asses. Okay. You don't need those people in your life. You don't need those people that doubt you. Oh, you're never going to do it. Oh, I don't think you're going to make it. I don't think you're going to make it happen. Okay. You don't need those people. Okay. You need support, but don't go out and get support just because it's support. Make sure it's the right type of support. Okay. You don't need people that don't really believe in your ability to accomplish it. Okay. Of course, we're all going to have doubts about certain people, whatever. Okay. But a friend, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, whoever, like, we need to overcome that and say, hey, I'm going to do whatever it takes to support this person to help them accomplish their goals. Okay. So you need a support system, cheerleaders, motivators, and hard asses. You need all of that. Okay. You don't need the negative stuff. You don't need the negative people, the people that don't believe in you. You don't need any of that. Okay. All right. And the last and final thing that we're going to talk about is what you need in order to make your New Year's program actually work. Is you need to have knowledge on how to adjust and tweak your program without guessing. Okay. Without guessing is extremely important. Okay. The answer is not always, oh, I need to cut my calories. The answer is, oh, I need to do more exercise. Okay. That's not always the answer. Okay. You have to know that the changes that you are going to make are actually going to give you results. If you have any doubts and you're just guessing, let's say, oh, I think this is going to work. You do not have that security that it's going to work. You're always going to have that thing in the back of your mind of, man, I don't think this is going to work because I'm just guessing. Okay. This is why it's so important to have that knowledgeable person. Or if you don't have, if you're not the knowledgeable person, have somebody outside of you, which is what I normally suggest, right? That really knows what changes need to be made that are actually going to yield results. We don't want you wasting time. If you go back and you look at the three things that I said that are super important, okay, you want to make sure that you're not wasting your time. You want to make sure that you're actually getting results. And number three, you want to make sure that you're able to do this all year. This particular one right here is the one that makes sure that you're not wasting time. Okay. You're not wasting time if you have the knowledge on what needs to change and how to change it. Okay. If you are guessing, that again, that is going to put you into a space where you're not confident with what you're going to do. Okay. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up today's session. I'm not going to talk about anything else. I do want to say this. If you want my mini course on fat loss, okay, which covers the 5 biggest mistakes you're making with fat loss that you don't even know you're making. Okay. I go in depth on that. Okay. If you want, it's also going to include my proven fat loss strategies and the 9 must-have elements to make your program bulletproof. Okay. If you want that mini course that has all 3 of those things in there, just comment below, say mini course, and I will send you over the mini course with all 3 of those videos. Okay. Guys, if you're interested in having a one-on-one conversation about your goals, your problems, and how to overcome, just comment below. Let's talk, and we can schedule a phone call and we can go through it. My goal with you on that call is to get a clear understanding of what your true problem is. Okay. And tell you my 2 cents on what I feel it's going to take for you to actually start getting results and stop wasting time. Guys, as always, have a great week. We'll see you next week for our live. We'll see you then.